So hi aquatic science people, you're stuck with just me today, but sorry, not sorry. Today is your second dissection. We are going to be dissecting a clam, also known as a mussel. I have a massive mussel right here, massive mussels. So everybody's gonna, y'all's groups are gonna get one. And so these are, you'll notice that they have two hard shells, right? You can feel the hard shells. And you're going to be answering your lab sheet as you go. So have somebody, filling in all your questions as you progress along your dissection. So these are clams, also known as mussels. They are in kingdom Animalia, meaning that they are animals. They are in phylum Mollusca, okay, mollusks, so soft bodies, have shells. And they are in class Bivalvia. So Bivalvia meaning they have two shells, just like you can see here. They've got a shell on this side and a shell on this side. You're going to want to define all of those words that are on your lab sheet. So use your notes, use your mollusk notes, and you can fill those in. Number 7, why are clams called bivalves? It's because they have these two shells, so two separate shells that are going to open and close. Number 8, what's the purpose of the visceral mass? When we open this thing up, you're going to get to see the visceral mass. It's going to be like a big blob. It's if you've ever eaten oysters at oyster bake, whenever you go and you suck everything out of the shell, you're eating, in addition to the foot, you're also eating the visceral mass. It's the blob in there, the kind of snotty blobby part that has all the organs in it. And then 9 through 12, you're going to define anterior, posterior, dorsal, and ventral. Okay. Then you're going to measure your clam. When you're measuring it, okay, you want to measure the length. So how long is it? So you're going to put how long is going to be this way. Okay. The width is going to be the opposite direction. All right. So crossways. And then the height, you're going to see how tall your clam is. So from where it sits on the ground to where the top of the shell is, as you look at it this way. And then you're going to get the mass. So the mass probably won't be very much because they're kind of smallish. Then you're going to label it. So you're going to look at the picture and you're going to label the following terms. And I'm going to show you where they are on this so that you know what you're looking for. So your first word is umbo, and that's just fun to say, umbo. That is going to be this like protuberance. That's a good word too if you ever want to sound real smart. It's like this protuberance here, this pokey part, this kind of knob on the top. There's 2 of them, okay? So these are the umbos. And once you find the umbos, you can find where the shell is connected. The umbos are on either side of another thing that you're going to look for called the hinge ligament. So the umbos are on either side of the hinge ligament. The hinge ligament is where the shell connects and does its opening and shutting thing. Growth rings, okay? You're going to look for growth rings, and when you are looking at your shell, you'll see, especially if you rub on it with your probe, you can hear it kind of sounds like castanets or something, or road bumps whenever you run over the middle of the road if you're drifting out of your lane. Try not to do that. Those are your growth rings. So they grow at different rates, and they get these little growth rings in there. So it's kind of like rings on a tree. For years that they grow, they get different little rings. Okay, then you're going to find the dorsal, ventral, anterior, and posterior side. With clams, even though you've defined them and they do mean kind of different things, so with a clam, I'm going to show you how to figure it out, and we group 2 of them, we group sets of them together. So, okay, so looking at your clam, you're going to line up your probe at the umbo, because we just talked about the umbo a second ago. So line up your probe at your umbo. Okay. With that, the larger side is going to be your posterior or your dorsal side. Okay? So the larger side is your posterior or dorsal side. The smaller side is going to be your anterior or your ventral side. All right? So posterior, the way that I always remember this is that your posterior side has your butt on it, and the clams, apparently, they like big butts and they cannot lie. That is your posterior side, okay? And yes, feel free to use that with your friends and family now because they're going to think you're super smart in aquatics. So posterior, the butt side is the big side. Clams have big butts. Okay, and then the other side is anterior. All right. Then we are going to move on to the internal. So when you're doing the internal anatomy, most of these have already been pried open, but you know, even though they've been sort of opened and they're not totally closed, it doesn't mean that it's not a heck of a lot of fun to try to get these stupid things the rest of the way open. Feel free to use your probe, you know, use some leverage here. Think back to your physics classes. And it'll pop open at some point. It'll finally give up, and then you can kind of tear it open. And then you can see that there's some stuff that's tearing down here in my clam. That is the mantle. So I'm going to try and scrape. I'm going to try to keep the mantle in as one piece as I can. So I'm going to scrape along the edge here and try to keep, oh, that's some shell, doo-doo. There we go. I'm going to try to keep my mantle in one piece. Aha. Come on, you little toot. There we go. Okay. So, here is my clam. This portion right here, okay, this is called the mantle. This was stuck to the shell. This is the thing I just peeled off. And this mantle is what creates the shell. So the shell is, remember we talked about growth rings. So the shell is constantly being made at the edge of this mantle here. And I am actually going to kind of just peel this mantle away so that it's not in the way anymore. So there's some mantle. Mantle used to be attached right here on the shell. And you can see that on the inside of the clam, it's real shiny, and if you run your probe over it, it's very smooth, it's real iridescent. This stuff is called nacre, N-A-C-R-E. So nacre is what the shell is made of. This is what pearls are made of too. So the reason that you have nacre inside the shell is because it's real smooth and real lovely feeling. Because if you look at his body, or her body, it's very soft, and so it doesn't want to be scratched or anything like that. That's why they make pearls. If there's sand that gets in there, they're going to excrete some of this nacre onto it to make it smoother and softer, and not be an irritant to them. Okay, so if you look inside your clam, okay, you're going to be able to see these flap things. Okay, and they're not feathery like in the fish, but this is what your gills are. Okay, so you have your gills here. All right, so these are gills. They're kind of striated. They have stripes on them. Okay, it exchanges oxygen and carbon dioxide for the clam. Then you have this big thing. This is probably the most noticeable feature, and when you compare this, so if you kind of touch on this part of the clam, it's real squishy. Okay, so underneath the gills you're going to find the visceral mass. Okay, so if you kind of, well, I guess sort of not necessarily under it, but above it. So above the gills you'll find the visceral mass, and it's real squishy and squashy. And then if you look under the gills, and you touch this thing, this is the muscular foot, and it's really solid. It's very firm. So muscular foot, this is what they're gonna stick it out of the shell, and they're gonna use it to kind of, you know, move along, pull themselves along. So they'll stick their foot out and pull themselves along. So visceral mass, gills, muscular foot. You'll also find these two things that look sort of, I don't know, like, they look like elf shoes to me. See, look, there's the little toes. But these are called the labial palps. So labia means lips. So these are like the clams, this is sort of like the clam's mouth. It's going to trap plankton and other things along the gills, and then it's going to be kind of siphoned over to where the labial palps are. I'm going to try to find a mouth here. Right, I think we're making progress, maybe. Oh, you stupid thing. Gosh, dog it. So anyways, your labial palps are going to direct you to where the mouth is on the clam, or sort of mouth. Okay, foot, visceral mass. And then you also have, let me see if I can find them. We have muscles here. Okay, so we've got, let me pull the mantle off of this one. We have the posterior adductor muscle. Okay, so the posterior adductor muscle is going to be over here. You can see it. It's this, it looks almost like a tree trunk or something, I guess. So that is your posterior adductor muscle. And then over here you have your smaller anterior adductor muscle. So what you can do is you can pull your whole entire clam body out, and then you can see the muscles. So so you have your umbo, okay, here's your umbo right there, and you draw a line down it, okay? And when you draw your line down, remember, clams they like big butts and they cannot lie. So this is your butt side. This is your posterior adductor muscle, and here is your anterior adductor muscle. And you can tell that because this one is bigger than this one. Your posterior, your butt side, is always going to be bigger than your front side over here. So a lot of people, like I just did this earlier today, of trying to draw a line from the hinge ligament where that's connected, but that is incorrect. You have to start from the umbo, and when you draw a line straight down from the umbo, you're going to get the smaller anterior side and the larger posterior side. And then it asks you to find siphons. I think my siphons might have gotten torn, but the clam is going to have siphons on an edge of it. If you can, and they'll look like two little tubes, but I'm not seeing any siphons on my clam here. I think they might have gotten a little torn up. Anyways, so the siphons are going to look like two little tubes, and that's how clams get water in, like they pump water into the body cavity, and the water sticks, the plankton and stuff stick to the gills, and then it's siphoned towards the labial palps. And you can see there's labial palps on both sides, labial palps on this side, labial palps on this side. There's gills on this side, gills on that side. So there's two sets of everything. So yes, if you find siphons, cool. They look like two little tubes, and they use them to get water. The in-current siphon is going to suck water into the clamshell, and the ex-current siphon is going to force water out of the clamshell. And I think that's it. Okay, so once you are finished and you completed everything, you can clean up your areas, make sure to throw all your stuff away, and make sure that everything makes it into the trash can. Please, please, please make sure that you wash your dissection tools with soap and water so that they're not gross for the next class. Spray down your desks with the cleaning spray, throw everything in the trash, and then put your dissection tools back where they're supposed to go. And I know this is not the most exciting, but it's, aquatic science, so yay. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.